Every product made is eventually bought, and every purchase generates an income. In a perfectly measurable economy, the value of total production, total expenditure, and total national income align exactly. In theory, you can calculate GDP using the product, expenditure, or income method, arriving at a perfectly balanced result. But in the official estimates from India's MOSPI, the income method is absent. We only see data for product and expenditure. The reason is structural. In a country of over 1.4 billion people, only about 40 to 50 million individuals actively file income taxes. The government simply does not possess the comprehensive, centralized data required to execute a reliable, income-based calculation. Much of the nation's income is generated in the vast informal economy that remains outside the tax net. Analyzing India's economic trajectory requires looking directly at the specific line items of the MOSPI report, using only the product and expenditure methods. The architecture of these estimates reflects the administrative realities of the Indian state, shifting the focus from theoretical models to the actual categories used by MOSPI. We start with the product method. This measures the total gross value of all goods and services produced within the country's domestic boundaries. When a consumer buys an item, they pay the market price. That final bill inherently includes indirect taxes, like GST. But MOSPI's foundational metric for production is different. They use a standard called the basic price. To isolate basic price, take market price, subtract indirect taxes, and add back subsidies. This equals pure factor cost. Adding the basic prices of every good and service produced yields the gross value added, or GVA, at basic prices. Over time, machinery and infrastructure experience wear and tear. This depreciation is the mathematical bridge between a gross and a net metric. By subtracting this depreciation from the gross domestic product, we arrive at the net domestic product. Because MOSPI provides tables for both figures, you can subtract net domestic product from gross domestic product to reverse engineer the exact rate of depreciation. Tracking GVA at basic prices allows policymakers to analyze the actual cost of domestic production, stripped of the distortionary effects of shifting tax rates and subsidy programs. The second half of the MOSPI report verifies production by tracking where the money goes. This is the expenditure method. It relies on the standard macroeconomic equation, C plus G plus I plus exports minus imports. We begin with the capital C. In the MOSPI tables, this C is labeled as Private Final Consumption Expenditure, or PFCE. This captures all household spending. It includes durable goods like cars and furniture, as well as non-durable goods like groceries and petrol. It also covers paid services. Hiring a domestic cleaner or paying a private healthcare provider is logged under PFCE. However, there is a strict boundary. PFCE excludes unpaid domestic labor. If a family member provides childcare or home maintenance, no financial transaction occurs, so it remains invisible in official data. Look at the percentage shares in the report, and you will see that PFCE is the dominant force in India, consistently making up nearly 57% of the entire GDP. This massive PFCE share identifies India as a consumer-driven economy, deeply reliant on household spending power rather than state investment. The G in our equation stands for Government Final Consumption Expenditure. This tracks the state's operational spending. It includes the administrative logistics, uniforms, ammunition, and salaries for the armed forces. It also covers the operational cost of public services, such as paying the doctors and medical staff who keep public hospitals running. Next is I, or Gross Capital Formation. This metric represents net investment in the physical economy by both private businesses and the state. Gross capital formation captures capacity building. It records a private company buying factory machinery, or the government funding heavy infrastructure like new highways and railway networks. Buying or selling existing land does not count towards this total. It is simply an asset transfer, not the creation of a new one. The final pieces of the expenditure puzzle include net exports, which adds what we sell abroad and subtracts what we import. It also factors in changes in stocks for unsold inventory, valuables like precious metals and art, and a discrepancy line to balance minor statistical gaps. By comparing gross capital formation against both government and private consumption, analysts can see the exact balance between immediate consumption and long-term capacity building. With these definitions established, we can apply them to historical data. We look at the Mosby time series estimates calculated at constant prices, using the 2011-2012 base year. Using constant prices strips away the illusion of inflation, allowing us to see real-world growth and output. This chart shows a decade of steady economic expansion. But right at the 2020-2021 financial year, the line hits a catastrophic anomaly. The pandemic triggered severe lockdowns, resulting in a 6.6% contraction in India's gross domestic product. The sectoral breakdown within the Mosby report shows exactly where the damage occurred. The tertiary sectors, which depend on human mobility and physical interaction, were decimated. Output in trade, hotels, transport, and communication services plummeted by nearly 20% in a single year. This shows that an economy reliant on private consumption, PFCE, is structurally vulnerable to sudden stops in physical trade and transport. Yet the same dataset reveals areas of structural resilience that survived the 2020-2021 period. Despite the overarching 6.6% crash, the data identifies two specific areas that maintained positive growth. The first was the cluster of financial, real estate, and professional services, which were able to sustain operations remotely. But the most significant shock absorber was the primary sector. Agriculture, forestry, and fishing maintained consistent positive growth, while the rest of the economy halted. The Mosby data proves that while services and consumption drive India's high-speed expansion, agriculture remains its ultimate safety net. Mastering these datasets allows for a diagnostic view of the nation's structural realities, revealing exactly where the economy grows, where it is vulnerable, and where it finds its resilience.